So in this video, we're going to carry on with our advanced configuration, and we are going to configure network address translation on our Internet Gateway router. We're going to do this using the Secure Device Manager, just like we did for DHCP. So in the Router and Security Device Manager, we are on the Configuration tab, which again, you can't see because Java, and we have a NAT tab over here on the left. Now again, there's two types of NAT. There's a dynamic NAT and a static NAT. The dynamic NAT means you have multiple machines on the inside of the network that need to get outside to whatever host is out there on the internet. A static NAT is that one-to-one address assignment, and that's what's under this advanced NAT option here. Now, we will not need to do that for the ICND. We're just going to use the basic NAT task. So we're going to launch the selected task, and this is the basic NAT wizard. Luckily, here in the SDM, it's a pretty straightforward process. Just like we did with DHCP, we're going to look in the iOS once we're done. We'll actually see the commands that are delivered to the iOS, and you'll see there's a lot that goes on under the hood to make dynamic NAT work properly. So we'll hit Next here at the beginning. Now it wants us to choose the interface that connects to the Internet. This is the one that's closest to the Internet. In our case, it doesn't actually connect directly to the Internet, but it connects our lab network to my internal lab network. So we will choose Fast Ethernet 00 because that's the one that's on the outside, the 192.168.1 network. And we're going to check the checkbox to say we're going to share the connection that's on Fast Ethernet 00 with everything on the 10.10.1 network on this side. Now in the NAT parlance, this interface up here is the outside interface, and this address down here is the inside interface. So we'll hit Next. And that's pretty much all there is. Once you do that, you hit Finish. It delivers the commands to the router. You hit OK. And here is the NAT configuration. Basically, it says anything that's on 10.10.10 to 10.10.1.255 gets translated to 192.168.1.245, and it's a dynamic NAT. If we hit Edit, we can choose a static NAT if we're not already set up as a dynamic NAT. We can look at the address pool. Address pools are used if we're going to configure multiple outside addresses. So if we had a pool of outside addresses and we wanted to do a one-to-one or a one-to-many using this pool of addresses, this is where you'd configure that. You can look at the translation timeouts, and this is getting into some of the advanced settings that's not used in the ICND. But for the most part, that's got NAT configured for us. Now, let's go into our router over here. The first thing I'm going to do is write the config, just because I'm paranoid. So now let's do a show run and look at the commands that were delivered to the router for us. So there's our DHCP. There's our interface configurations. And I spaced right by it, so I had to scroll up a little bit. But you'll notice that it's IPNAT outside on Fast Ethernet 00, IPNAT inside on Fast Ethernet 01, because that's a pretty basic NAT configuration. And really the only other command that's necessary is IPNAT inside source list 1 interface Fast Ethernet 00 overload. And what this says is the inside addresses are considered source addresses on the interface we've specified as the inside interface. The outside interface is Fast Ethernet 00, and we're going to overload, which says do port address translation as well. So as before, let's go ahead and verify that this works. So let's go out to our command prompt here, and let's do ping 192.168.1.254. For some reason, these requests are timing out, so let's kind of kick over into troubleshooting mode, and let's look at the NAT tables over here on the router. This could be a NAT problem, or it could be just the fact that everything in this network is virtualized, and sometimes they don't play nice with one another. So let's do show IP NAT, and we'll do translations. And you'll see we have an ICMP translation. The inside address is 192.168.1.245. That's the inside global, which is the address that's configured on this router. The inside local address is 10.10.1.50. That's the IP address of this Windows XP machine. The outside local is the address we're going to, in this case 192.168.1.254, and the outside global address is the same thing because this is a dynamic NAT, and so the outside local and global addresses are always the same in a dynamic NAT. So the traffic's being natted. It could just be that I'm blocking ICMP at that firewall. So let's do ping 8.8.8.8. We're getting a destination host unreachable from 10.10.1.254. So this particular issue is because everything is virtualized and my virtual router doesn't realize that it actually can forward that traffic along. But if we go out here and we look at the translations now, we've got multiple translations going out to our DNS server on UDP port 53, showing that this guy is trying to do DNS lookups on the DNS server that's configured in DHCP, and right now it can't because, again, everything's all virtualized. But if this were actual hardware, you would actually be out on the internet. We've gone through all the configuration steps, and in a normal situation, this would actually work properly. So that concludes our discussion of configuring NAT.